Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina Abil Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad. وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين جل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Islamic belief system. This is the final chapter of the book on felicity or happiness or sa'adah. Normally, this is not discussed in the books on aqa'id. But when we were planning the book, we thought we should include it here. Because what we have discussed so far, after proving the existence of God and His attributes in Unit 2 and His Lordship, then we talked about human beings as His creatures and different things about human beings, especially the fact that we are not just body, we are body and spirit, and our spirit is immaterial and we have different needs. And we have unlimited capacity for growth, for knowledge. We talked about issues like qada and qadar and these type of things. Then we said, in order to actualize our potentials, God has provided us with guidance. So in Unit 4, we talked about general guidance, about prophethood, revelation, different religions, books, the relation between them. Then, in the next unit, we focused on Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Quran and his miracle, and how to benefit from the Quran. Then we talked about hereafter, and we said in order to be able to understand how we make decisions and how we can be guided, we need to know that our life is going to be followed by eternal life. So we talk about hereafter, about death, about barzakh, about the day of judgment. Now we want to see if we follow that guidance, what would we achieve in dunya and akhirah? What would we achieve as individuals and as society? So we have to discuss these things, and inshallah this would make us more interested in following God's guidance. Then in the next book, Islamic Plan for Life, we discuss now what is the plan that through His guidance He has given us in order to achieve this sa'adah, this felicity. So the second book is about His plan, whether it is about values, whether it is about behavior, and whether it is about social life, followed by Islamic culture and civilization. That is the second volume that inshallah will come. Okay, so now you realize why we discuss about sa'adah, because we want to know what can we achieve if we follow guidance from God. I think you find this a very popular and common idea among people that everyone is interested in happiness. They want to have happiness. But the question is in what they see their happiness. What makes them feel happy in their lives? and what is the way to gain that happiness. Some people think happiness is a matter of having more pleasure. And among them, they mean by pleasure mostly physical pleasure, instant pleasure, worldly pleasure. So if you can enjoy yourself by eating very delicious food, having very comfortable home, having good car, good holidays, then you are happy. That's the only thing that matters to them. Some people say happiness is having a system which provides everyone with basic welfare, for example. So there are different things. Some people say happiness is having no worries, no stress, having hope, having aspirations. So there are different definitions. Muslim scholars, inspired by the Quran, but of course based also on their limited understanding, they have offered different explanations of what is happiness. For example, Muslim philosophers like Avicenna, they have said that happiness is flourishment or development of human potentials. We have lots of potentials. If we actualize them, if we realize them in a balanced way, then we are happy. For example, if you have potential for being knowledgeable, being generous, being brave, being just, being kind, if you grow them, if you have potential for being good artist and you develop it, when in every aspect of your personality you have grown, then you are a happy person, and indeed you are the one who is complete in his or her humanity. In Akhlaq lectures in the Hose, the first year, we discussed in few sessions what is our understanding of Insan Kamil. And we said Insan Kamil, of course, it's a term that needs attention, because if you say perfect man, no human being can be perfect. We mean by Insan Kamil, maybe it's better to say complete man. Means someone who has grown in his humanity, has not reached perfection, but in every aspect that humanity can grow, has grown, and has not remained at the level of just being animal. That is Insan Kamil, which is the other side of the same coin of nearness to God. When you become complete in your humanity, then you are in nearest position to God. This is very beautiful. In Islam, humanity is not a bad thing, is not a vicious thing, is not something that suffers from, some eternal problems or sins. Humanity is great. The only problem is that some human beings, they don't develop their humanity. If you have people like Hitler or Saddam, this shouldn't make us think some human beings are bad because of their humanity. We can say some human beings have not become fully human beings. They have not grown in their humanity. They have just remained as potentials. This is the problem. So, according to Muslim philosophers like Ibn Sina, we have to grow in all our potentials so that we can have a happy life. If you grow only in one aspect or some aspect but not all, then that is not sufficient, and still you would have some difficulties. In order to grow in different aspects, we need to remember two things. One is that we have two dimensions: physical and spiritual. You must not forget any of them. You must not forget the physical side, you must not forget the spiritual side. Both of them are there and are important, and we have to work on them in the way that is harmonious. You cannot work on each of them separately. You know, it's not like, for example, you have two homes that you can say, okay, one day I work on this home to make it clean and beautiful, another day on another home. And their conditions would not have any impact on each other. They're two separate homes, and I need to keep both of them clean and in good form and order, but they are separate. No. Body and soul are not two separate homes. Body and soul are not even two levels of the same home, in the sense that you can say first floor and second floor. So no matter what is happening in the first floor, I can keep the second floor or in order, or vice versa. Body and soul are more than even two floors of the same building. Body and soul together make one home, one floor. And it's impossible to have a good space without one of them. It's like, for example, you have all the walls and windows and everything, but if you don't have electricity, if you don't have heater, it doesn't work. Or if you have electricity and heater, but you don't have walls and windows and furniture, it doesn't work. Or it's like a school. You have the building, but you don't have teachers. You don't have curriculum. Or you have teachers and curriculum, but no building. So, we need both. So, not only both are needed, but both are also going hand in hand. This is why you see Islam in its instructions considers both aspects at the same time. For example, fasting. Fasting is something which has lots of benefits for our spirituality. We would be able to resist against our temptation. We would gain willpower. We would have sympathy for people who are poor. Lots of benefits. But at the same time, it is good for our body, for our health. But if happens that for some people in some conditions, this fasting with all those benefits is going to harm their health, then they are asked not to fast. So, you see, body and soul should be considered together. Or, for example, you see that something which is haram, like drinking alcohol, it's not only forbidden because it is bad for our soul, but it is also bad for our body. So, even the Quran says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. They ask you about wine and gambling. Tell them, قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. Maybe there are some benefit in them, and Quran is very fair. It doesn't say that they are 100% useless, but they have lots of harm for you, which would overweigh any benefit in soul and in body. So, if we avoid haram, we would have good health and good also a spiritual condition. So we have to work on both of them together. There are lots of discussions that we can have here that how Islam encourages us, for example, to work for akhirah but not to forget dunya, and to work for dunya but not forget akhirah. Dunya, akhirah, body and soul, individual and society, these all go together. You cannot sacrifice body for the sake of soul or vice versa, dunya for akhirah or vice versa, or individual for society or vice versa. Everything should be in balanced position. Okay, another issue is that if we want to be able to understand our happiness, in addition to considering these two dimensions of human beings that are there and have to be together, we should also have proper understanding of the world. Because if you know human beings, but you don't know about the world, about God, about the creation, still you will not be able to have the complete answer. What is the core and the center, the focal point in Islamic understanding of happiness is that our happiness is measured by our nearness to God. The closer you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the more complete you become, the more harmony would be between you and other people and inside you. Internal harmony and external harmony comes when you go closer to God. The more you go farther away from the center, there would be more separation. Like when you have a circle and then you have angle. When you go farther away towards the environment, then the angle becomes bigger and bigger. When you go to the center, it's closer. So when people get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would get closer to each other as well, and they would get more integrated and more united in themselves. Less stress and less tension. Stress is inside, tension is outside. When you go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stress is reduced, tension is reduced. And it is finally stopping. Inshallah, we will talk about zikr later. So this is a very important aspect of understanding Islamic account of happiness. So now we have to understand few more things. First, who am I? What are my potentials, my talents, my capabilities, and where I want to reach, and what means and instruments I have. So these are things that we have to understand. First, knowing ourselves. The very first thing that we have to do is to know ourselves. This is what in Islamic tradition we call it ma'rifatun nafs, self-knowledge. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. Whoever knows himself, he has known his Lord. There is no way to know yourself properly and not to know your Lord. If you know a person very well, you know who his parents are. If you know a book very well, you know the author. You cannot know a book and think that the author had no existence or no such qualities. So if we know ourselves properly, we realize that we are created. We are not there by ourselves or by chance. We are created, and our creator must have certain qualities. There are many hadiths about ma'rifatul nafs. I have mentioned some of them in the first chapter of Books of Knowledge. For example, Amirul Mu'minin says, ma'rifatul nafs anfa'ul ma'arif, is the most beneficial knowledge. Because it can even bring knowing God. It can bring every good thing that you want. So, first we have to know ourselves. There are lots of discussions here. We don't want to go into this discussion by itself. It's a course. Second, nearness to God. There is a question some people ask. Actually, a few days ago also someone asked me if God is everywhere, and the Quran says God is nearer to us than our jugular vein. So what does it mean that we want to get near to Him? This is something which is already there. The answer is nearness to God and nearness of God to us are not physical. When two physical objects are near, they are near to each other from both sides. If object A is near object B, then object B is also near object A. For example, if there is 1 meter distance or 1 inch, it's from both sides. So there is no way to say object A is near, for example, to B, but B is not near A. Normally this is the case. But in intellectual and immaterial spiritual things, this is not true. It's possible that A is near to B, but near B, but B is not near A. How? Because it's not a matter of physical distance. It's a matter of qualities. For example, if you are a parent who himself or herself has been a child, has had lots of brothers and sisters, and now has also had some children. So your third child, fourth child is 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 13 years old. What is nearness between you and your child? Many times you feel you are very near to your child, but your child is not near to you. In the sense that you can know everything about him, you know what he is going through, what he is thinking, what he needs, what challenges are, but the child doesn't have this understanding of you. So you are near, but he may not be near. Or for example, a teacher who has been teaching, for example, certain year, for many years, has lots of experience, has seen hundreds of students, is very near to what is happening to their mind and heart. Even he knows what students feel in the same day. For example, first day of the year, or last day of the year, or after exam, before exams, he or she can really understand, but not necessarily the other way around. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is near to us and near to everyone, good people and bad people. Even he's near to bad people. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. We have created man. We know what his soul is temptations is bringing. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Or another place Allah says, يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Allah can stand between you and your heart. Before you know what is happening in your heart, He knows what is happening in your heart. And this is about everyone. But are we also near to Him? This is not necessarily the case. This is why we have to seek nearness. Taqarrub. We have to try to get closer to Him. Some people may get near. Some people may remain far. There is a journey to move nearer to Him. First, you have taqarrub, means seeking nearness, but then you become muqarrab. There's a big difference. Mutaqarrab is the one who is seeking nearness. Muqarrab is the one who is brought nearer. I use this example. For example, a person travels and comes to your door. Then you open the door and take him to the guest room. In our journey towards Allah, we always travel with Him, but a time comes that He carries us. He always travels with us, but the time comes that we are so exhausted and we are so little in our understanding that the rest of journey is only Him carrying us. This is the meaning of muqarrab, and this is the meaning of tathir. We have tatahhur, means you are seeking purity, but then we have mutahharun, those who are purified by God. Means then a time comes that only God can purify you. For example, how can you avoid mistakes? How can you avoid forgetfulness? You can avoid sins. Maximum that you can do is to avoid sins, but you cannot avoid mistakes and forgetfulness. But if you do your best in avoiding sins, then Allah takes you to the level of maximum purity, that you don't make mistakes and you don't even forget. This is what Allah has done to Ahlul Bayt, that has kept them away not only from sins but from any impurity. So, taqarrub is something that we should try to achieve. It has different stages. Little by little we go nearer. Maybe during a day we make lots of progress, but next day maybe we are stuck, or na'udhu billah, we go back. Like people who are climbing, one day they go a few meters up, another day maybe they come down. So it's very challenging journey, but we should keep trying so that inshallah we finally will reach a point that we will be at least near enough to be saved, near enough not to die without light. So this is about taqarrub. What happens to a person who is near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This needs lots of discussion, but briefly, a person who is near is resembling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. This is one way of explaining. If Allah is unlimited in His knowledge, and you get nearer to Him, then it means that your knowledge must become more and more and more. If he is unlimited in his power, when you get nearer to him, your power increases. If he has will, when you get nearer to him, your willpower increases. If he is very kind and merciful, if you go nearer to him, your kindness and mercifulness would increase. So, you cannot get nearer to him without resembling his qualities. This is why in hadith we are told, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. You should try to equip yourselves with those moral qualities and moral traits of character that God has. Of course, this is about those things which are common. Most of the qualities are common. He has the unlimited way. We should try to have them as much as possible. But there are some which are only for him. For example, greatness. You cannot become like him in his kibriya. But still you can become great. And that is through humbleness. Not through arrogance. By having kibr, you don't become great. That is his way, because he is really great. For us, acknowledging our need and poverty and being humble is the way to become great, but in a limited way. We can never become great in absolute sense, but we can grow and become greater than other creatures. Like Allah says to Rasulullah, إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. So there is a way for us to become azim in our characteristics, but by being humble. Another way to define nearness. So what was the first way to define nearness? Yes. Resembling him in his quality. The second way to define nearness is through purity. Allah is the purest of the pure. If we purify ourselves, if we do tazkiyatun nafs, if we remove any impurities are caused by our attachment to dunya. Hubbud dunya ra'su kulli khatiya. You remember in the akhlaq lessons we had self-purification. When we are attached to dunya, we become ill. You know, like you have a very, very beautiful flower, but instead of giving pure water, you give dirty water, polluted water. This flower becomes little by little ill and dies. We have to give pure knowledge, pure attention, pure desires, pure connections, pure friendship, everything pure, so that we get closer to Allah, who is the purest of the pure. So those who go towards Allah, they are seeking purity. They are mutatahhir. Another way, the third way of defining nearness to Allah, these are all correct. I am just trying to approach it from different angles, is through love. And this is one of the actually fastest ways to move towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you develop love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then little by little your love increases. then it reaches a time that this love becomes overwhelming. This love, when it's overwhelming, it leaves no other thing in your heart. Imam Hussein alayhi salam said in Dua Arafah, إلهي أنت الذي عزلت الأغيار عن قلوب أحبائك حتى لم يحبوا سواك. You are the one who has removed others from the heart of his friends so that they don't love anyone else. You know, for example, there are people who love different things. For example, they love their job, they love their home, they love their car, they love their husband or wife, they love children, they love many different things. But sometimes there are people who fall in love with one thing, and that is so overwhelming that they cannot think of anything else. Day and night they keep thinking. For example, some people, like some scientists, they so much love their own subject and research that even when they go out, they are thinking about this. If they are eating or they are thinking about this. Some people think they are mad because they are so focused that they cannot sometimes do justice to other things. This is when you really love something. Sometimes you love one person in this way. When you sleep, the last thing in your mind is that person. When you wake up, the first thing is that person. And then during the night, you dream that person. So you are all the time thinking of that person. They say when Majnun or Farhad, one of them, I don't know which one was killed because these are two icons for love. Was killed, blood came out of the body of Farhad or Majnun, and the blood wrote the name of the beloved. Means in every drop was the love for the beloved. So when it came out, wrote the name of the beloved. So it means that it's overwhelming. In Misbah al-Sharia, which is attributed to Imam Sadiq, maybe a student of Imam wrote this or someone was inspired, says, Hubbullah narun la tamurru bishay'in illa wahtaraqa. Love for Allah is a fire. This fire would not pass by anything unless it is totally burnt. Means it overwhelms and removes any impurity. How you see, for example, imams or prophet, when they were saying their prayer, they were not feeling anything. They were not feeling passage of time. They were not feeling tiredness or pain. Even maybe sometime, for example, Rasulullah's legs were, swallowed, but he was not feeling. Maybe when the prayer was finished, they were feeling, that there is some pain. But because of love that they had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were not able to pay attention to anything else. It was not artificial. It was all natural, and this is because love is very overwhelming. So, if your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intensifies and reaches the point that would overwhelm, then you are very near to Him. You are very near to Him. You would love others, but through Him. It's not that you don't love others. Actually, you love others more than people who love others for their own sake love them. If you love, for example, if I love my job, because of my job, I have interest in it, I enjoy it. But if I am a lover of Allah and I love my job as a way to serve Him, which one loves his job more? It's a big difference. If I love my child because my child, but if I love my child because this is ni'mah of Allah and I know that Allah wants me to look after them and I'm responsible for them and it's a blessing of Allah, it's amanah of Allah, this is much more different from someone who loves his or her children as an just instinct. There is a limit in this love, but in the love which is originating from Allah, there is no limit. If this love is not genuine, it has a certain limit. After some time you think this is costing too much. You leave it. But if it is for the sake of Allah, if Allah wants you to sacrifice, you would sacrifice. So, love is also a very important aspect of nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fourth dimension, and I'm finishing this discussion tonight with this, is ma'rifah. Or maybe I explain this next session. I continue? Okay. So, another dimension of nearness to Allah is ma'rifah. Ma'rifah of Allah can be sometimes just a theoretical, conceptual knowledge. This is not necessarily a sign of nearness to Allah. For example, you know that God exists. You have arguments for existence of God. You have no doubt about His existence. You know His qualities. But this is not what we mean by ma'rifah. We mean by ma'rifah having personal acquaintance with God. It's different. Sometimes you have heard about someone or read about someone. So you have some knowledge. And maybe that knowledge is accurate. There is nothing wrong. There is no mistake. But that knowledge does not have the power of personal acquaintance with that person. Imagine a person who is orphan, and when he was born, father has died. This orphan has no experience, personal experience of father. So he keeps hearing good things about father. He loves father, but it's not the same as a person who has had father. Do you understand the difference? So we are like orphans that we know we have God. And we have heard good things about Him. But those who are near God, those who are arif, they have personal acquaintance, so they have lived with God. There's a big difference. Hearing about God, talking about God, or living with God. Most of people, even believers, they don't live with God. But there are people who live with God. And if you live with God, means God is more familiar to you than anything or anyone. This is not exaggeration. For example, a person that you know very well, your father, mother, children, husband, wife, friend, brother, sister. You know them very well. But you cannot be 100% sure about them and about your relation with them, especially in future. Even in moment you are not sure what 100%, but even in future it's more uncertain. But when you are with God, you are 100% sure about His sincerity, about His loyalty, about His love for you, which is not egoistic. You are only worried about yourself. When you deal with God, you have absolute peace of mind about the other side. But when you are dealing with anyone other than God, you have worries about yourself, you have also worries about them. So, if we live with Him, if we have personal acquaintance with Him, then this is nearness. And then you can reach the point that people live with you, then through you live with God. If you become a godly person, so you become a catalyst. People knowing you personally, they start feeling the presence of God, and little by little, they become also connected to God. May Allah inshallah help us to achieve maximum nearness to Him without any interval and without any separation, inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.